but you know I never will. No, so I choke you down just like a pill. Take you like a
Hello, welcome. How's everyone doing today? My name is Brandon, Midsummer Friday streamer. I stream lots of big games, ChatGPT, as well as I draw art, and hopefully I'll be doing 3D modeling for everyone here. Welcome to our next art stream. How's everyone been? Hopefully everyone's doing well. Welcome. Alright, so I'm gonna do here pretty much continuing with line art as well as getting a few things fixed up, and outside of that, pretty much I want to generally just get a feel for things and whatnot. That being said, I believe we can do for torso here. Can do
I just love Latinas, Sonic.
Thank you. Oh yeah. Hi, Red. Alright, what I think I want to do pretty much is alright. What the heck? Or torso. Starting to wonder what that piece was for. Anywho. How are you, Red? How are you doing? Hope you're doing well. It's good. I think what I want to do for the head here. I want to like. Alright, I have an idea. I have an idea for the head. I want like a headpiece. Going here. Go on here. Ooh. Kind of like that. Okay. Undo is pretty much undo this real quick. Yeah, we can do it like that. Oh shit. Yeah. There we go. So this parent headpiece is obviously inspired by Genshin Impact Amber. Is it X? Hmm. Oh yeah, I want to. Where's here?
In tennis, to corrupt the memory value that keeps track of what world to start on when you hold A and press start on the title screen. If you haven't seen those two videos, I highly suggest you watch those first. Most of the glitch levels are just altered versions of levels that already exist in the game. But in this video, we'll explore the handful of fully glitched levels you can access and why they look the way they do. The root cause for the glitched levels is due to the world number value, which is normally constrained to the range 0 through 7 to correspond to worlds 1 through 8, which can be corrupted to any value from 0 to 255 by tennis. This means that 248 glitched world numbers exist. Each of those glitched world numbers correspond to a level ID that represents the first level in that glitch world. If you remember from the last video, we made this table of all of the possible level IDs, including glitch levels. We can mark off which of these levels correspond to the first level of each world. For example, the first level in World 1 has ID hex 25. The first level in World 2 has ID hex 28, and so on. These are the first levels of the 8 intended worlds in the game. If we look at the level ID of the first level in World 9, we get ID hex 06, as shown in the previous video. We can do this for all of the other 247 glitched worlds. You can see that not all of the level IDs get marked. Out of all 128 possible level IDs, only 68 of them are the first level in some world. This means the other 60 are either the second or later level in a world, or just not available in any world at all. Out of the available levels, many of them are just normal levels found in the game, or altered versions of them, such as 9-1 being level 6-2 but underwater, or level 81-1 being level 2-4 with bloopers but underground. But there are some glitched worlds that end up with a glitched level data pointer, which in turn create completely new glitch levels. There are 19 accessible glitch level IDs, but only 6 of them will actually load without crashing instantly. The first of which being level E-1, which is just a lone question block over a giant pit where Mario dies instantly. This exact level is also loaded if you try to start from World 224. Of course, once you get past World 35, or World Z, the level number starts to contain other glitched graphics, This tile corresponds to the number 224. Starting at world W loads in this level, which locks Mario in place and he can't move. Starting at world 42 or 133 lets you play this level, which is full of clouds, and eventually traps you if you manage to make it far enough. Even if you're sneaky and use Big Mario to clip through this pipe, you just get stopped by this big wall that you just can't get through. Worlds 62, 131, and 240 trap Mario in this castle where he is also unable to move. The game doesn't let Mario move until he falls down from this high up on the screen, but these two levels that are frozen like this have solid blocks high up, so Mario is unable to ever move at all. World 127 is a small underground tunnel, but it crashes if you go too far down it. And finally, World 137 leads you to a funny level that activates the automatic walking from the underground level cutscene. Unfortunately, Mario eventually meets his worst enemy, a single lone brick block that stops him to the end of time. All of the other world numbers take you either to a normal level in the game, a level from the original game but its type is different, like a castle level turned into an overworld level, or a black screen of death. In the video description, you can find a link to a page that I made that has maps of every level, including glitch levels. Using these maps, you can see what certain levels may look like if you could get past the parts that crash or make Mario stuck in place. This video will focus on why those glitch levels look the way they do. You may be surprised to find out that these levels are as playable as they are, and aren't just a giant mishmash of glitchy tiles all over the place. This is due to the intricate way that the level data is stored in the ROM. Like I mentioned in the previous video, the data for the tiles and the data for the sprites are held in different locations, so they are dealt with separately. Let's look at the tile data first. A naive way to store a level's tile data would be to just take all of the tile IDs for the entire level and list them one after another, left to right, top to bottom. This is just wildly inefficient though, since levels are mostly empty space. Level 1-1 is 224 tiles long and 14 tiles high, which equates to 3,136 tiles, which would take about 3 kilobytes to store. There are 8 times 4 levels, so multiply that by 32 and we're looking at around 100 kilobytes just for tile data. The Super Mario Bros. Program ROM was only 32 kilobytes big, so that'd be such a waste of space. Instead, larger sets of tiles and groups of blocks are divided up into their own objects. For example, a pipe object, a block staircase, a row of bricks.
I'll try to make sure I can get this right.
Objects are placed around the world.
Oh, I wonder
There are
how
a lot
to
of
do
peculiar
this.
and interesting ways that the level data is compressed into this format, however, so I'd like to go over the entire format in this video. The level tile data pointer in that big list for all of the levels points to the level header, which is a pair of bytes that holds information about 6 properties about the level itself. The highest 2 bits determine what the timer will start at for this level. If this is set to 00, then the timer will not change, which is used when entering a sublevel. The next 3 bits determine where Mario starts in the level vertically. Each of the different level types has a different height, but this can be set on a per level basis. Additionally, a value of 111 or 110 will enable auto-walking, which is used for the underground level cutscene. The last 3 bits in the first byte are sort of a modifier for the level type, and determine what the default backdrop looks like. This setting will enable the waves at the top of a water level, the brick wall background that you see in 8-3, water waves at the bottom of the level, the nighttime color scheme, the snowy color scheme, the snowy nighttime color scheme, and the nighttime fully gray color scheme that is used in level 6-3. The highest 2 bits of the second byte will assign properties to the level and will determine what the special platform for this level will be. The default floor block can be the orange rocky brick or clouds, the pipes can be green or orange, and the special platform can be the tree, the mushroom, or the bullet bill cannon. There's only 4 different combinations here, so you can't really mix and match these options. The next 2 bits determine the background scenery, which can be nothing, clouds, mountains and bushes, or fences and trees. And the last 4 bits of the header will control the initial floor pattern, which I'll talk about later. After the header is a big list of every object in the level. Each object takes up 2 bytes, or 16 bits, and they are just listed one after the other. The special byte hex FD marks the end of the list. Here is the format for each of the objects. The first byte is just the object's position. The higher 4 bits are its X position, and the lower 4 bits are its Y position. Now this only covers the range 0 to 15 in each direction, but levels are much longer than 16 blocks long. This is why the highest bit in the second byte is very important. It is called the next screen flag. Essentially, there is a working screen number that starts at 0 when the level first starts. Objects can only be placed on this first screen, which is 16 tiles wide. In order to increase the working screen number, this bit should be set. Then, this object and any after it will be placed on the next screen instead. This means that the objects in this big list have to be ordered in the same order they show up in the level left to right. Only about 2 screens of a level is loaded into memory at any given time, and the level is deleted behind Mario as he moves through the level and more level is generated in front of him. This is why you can't go backwards in this game. The code that handles loading the level only knows how to march through the data in one direction. I'll talk more about the level loading routine at the end of this video. The next 3 bits after the next screen bit is the object type. A value of 1 corresponds to that special platform, which depends on the level header. A value of 2 is for brick blocks, 3 is for square blocks, 4 is for coins, all in a horizontal row. A value of 5 is for brick blocks, and 6 is for square blocks, but in a vertical column. For these 6 object types, the last 4 bits determine the height or width of the column or row of tiles. Simple enough. A type of 7 is the pipe object. For this object, the bottom 3 bits are the height of the pipe, but that last bit is used as a flag to determine whether Mario can go in this pipe or not. A completely different object, actually a sprite object, handles where he goes when he enters it, and we'll get to that eventually. This means the standard pipe object can only be up to 8 tiles tall instead of 16. And of course, we're missing object type 0. Object type 0 is a broad group of objects that are only a single thing and don't have a width or height. So when the type is 0, these last 4 bits actually determine which tile this object is. This is where we find stuff like power-up blocks, hidden blocks, the brown block, flagpole, springboard, and the L-shaped pipe used in the underground level cutscene. It's a single object. Now we're still missing quite a lot of objects that exist in the game. It turns out we can fit a lot more into our format here. Remember how the Y position of the object takes up 4 bits and can range from 0 to 15? The level itself is only 14 tiles high, so there are 2 Y position values that will never be used. In fact, objects cannot be placed at the very top or the very bottom of the level either, so that leaves us with 4 extra Y positions that will never be associated with a standard object. Instead, we make special cases for when the Y position is 12, 13, 14, or 15. Now, since we are using the Y position as a sort of indicator, the objects that are identified by these numbers generally either have a fixed Y position, so they always appear in the same vertical position, or they are types of objects that just don't need a vertical position associated with them. For Y position 12, the 3 bits following the next screen flag are the object subtype, and the other 4 bits are the width again. Object type 0 here is a hole, which, yes, is its own object. You'll see why holes are objects when we get to the floor pattern thing. Object type 1 is the pulley platform rope, while types 2, 3, and 4
Okay, just
are
give up on the
bridges
pattern
at
for this.
various Y positions. since there is no Y position anymore, the Y position has to be hard-coded into the object type. Object type 5 is a hole with water or lava, and the remaining types 6 and 7 are rows of question blocks at fixed Y positions. Let's look at Y position 15 next, because it follows this exact format, just with more object types. Object types 0 and 1 are the vertical ropes for the platforms that move up and down. Object type 2 is the castle that you see at the start and end of levels. This object is funny because it is only 5 tiles wide, and the large part of the castle is cut off. The walls are built out further using the same brick walls that you find in level 8-3, and the height of the castle can be any value from 0 to 10, but only values 0 and 6 are used in the original game. Object type 3 is an ascending staircase of square blocks. The height and width are the same value, except for when it is 9 tiles wide, where the width is 9 and the height is 8, which is what is used at the end of a lot of levels. There is no object for a descending staircase, so if you want one of those, you have to build it out of a bunch of individual square block objects. Then object type 4 is the big pipe you see at the end of underground levels. Object type 5 is an unused object that is like the flagpole, except the top sphere is repeated all the way down its length. And then type 6 and 7 are empty, unused objects that don't do anything.
Fair.
Y position 13 is split into 2 subgroups, which is dependent on the bit adjacent to the next screen bit. If this bit is set, then the last 6 bits are used as another object subtype. Objects that are here include the L-shaped pipe and flagpole again, the bridge, axe, and rope that are at the end of each castle, and commands for stopping the screen from moving forward, generating random enemies, and making the level loop. Any object type greater than 11 will likely crash the game. If that one bit is cleared though, then the lower 5 bits encode a screen skip. Remember how the next screen flag works? It can only advance one screen at a time, and it takes an object to do so. If you want to skip forward more than one screen, you need more than one object with that flag enabled. But this object just encodes a screen number to skip to, so you can go forward more than one screen at a time. Technically, you can also go backwards, since the number encoded here is the screen number with reference to the start of the level, and not the number of screens to skip forward. However, due to how the level loading routine works, that just wouldn't work correctly. One more interesting thing about Y position 13. An object with Y position 13 and X position 15 is not possible. That is because this would encode the byte hex FD as the first byte of this object. This is the cue that the level loading routine uses to mark the end of the tile data, so we can't use it as an object. Finally, we have Y position 14. This object is also split into 2 subgroups using that same bit as last time. If this bit is set, then the lower 3 bits mark a change in the level type modifier. This is the same option that is in the level header, so when this object loads, it will change that level modification. The first 4 modifications happen instantly, while the palette swaps only take effect if the level is reloaded somehow, like by going through a pipe or dying. These middle 3 bits go unused. And if that bit is cleared, the next 2 bits mark a change in the background scenery, again, just like what was in the level header. And the last 4 bits mark a change in the floor pattern. Finally, we can look at what this floor pattern thing is. A big contributor to the number of blocks in a level is the floor, and if the level is a castle or underground, the ceiling as well. Instead of having separate objects to place each and every floor and ceiling block, the game uses floor patterns to create a sort of base template for the level. For example, the floor pattern of 1 will generate a floor that is 2 blocks tall. The rest of the level will continue to have this floor pattern until another different floor pattern object is in the level data. There are 16 different kinds of floor patterns, ranging from completely empty to completely filled. Just look at how this section of level 1-2 is made. There is a good combination of floor patterns and brick objects that create all of these different shapes. And this is why the whole object exists. It allows the level to have a small gap in the floor without needing to change the floor pattern and back again. Also, if there's a ceiling, the hole won't touch it, since it only removes the lower 5 tiles of the level. That was how the tile data is formatted, but what about the sprite data? Luckily, it's not as complex. There is no sprite data header, so the sprite level data pointer in the big list of levels just points straight to the first sprite in the level. These work very similarly to the objects in that the X and Y positions are held in the first byte, and the highest bit of the second byte is the next screen bit. Now, objects were barred from being placed at the very top and very bottom of the level, but sprites are allowed to be placed here. So the Y position of the sprites can go from 0 to 13. If this is the case, then the lower 6 bits of the second byte form the sprite type. This list includes basically every enemy, hazard, and moving platform in the game. It also includes some commands for turning on enemy generation, such as 𝙂𝙀𝙀𝙀, a command that triggers the warp zone to display, as well as the toads and the princess, which are the same sprite. There are also a few sprite types dedicated to spawning a group of enemies so that the number of sprites in the level data could be minimized. This last remaining bit is the hard level flag, not to be confused with hard mode, which is enabled after beating the game once. If this bit is set, then this sprite will only spawn if the current level is 5-3 or later. This is how the various levels that are repeats but with more enemies are created. We still have 2 Y positions we can use for other things, so let's see what's left. Y position 15 is the sprite version of the screen skip command we saw with the objects. The lower 5 bits are the number that gets set as the working screen. This sprite can't have X position 15, since that would encode the first byte as hex FF, which is what the sprite data uses to denote the end of its list, not hex FD like the object list. This isn't that big of a problem though, since the X position of the screen skip command doesn't really matter. And finally, there is sprite Y position 14. This is used for the special command that determines where Mario should go if he enters a pipe or climbs a vine. The lower 7 bits of the second byte encode the 7-bit level ID to load when the transition is taken. However, there's even more. This is the only command that takes 3 bytes instead of 2. The lower 5 bits of the third byte indicate the screen number within that level that Mario will appear. This is how Mario is able to return midway through a level after going into a bonus area. The last 3 bits here are a bit confusing. They encode the world number where this transition is applicable. Essentially, this transition command will only be processed if this value is the same as the world that Mario is currently in. Otherwise, it's ignored. The reason why this is a thing is because the underground bonus rooms are used in multiple levels. This first underground bonus room is not just used in level 1-1, but also in levels 2-1 and 7-1. This room has 3 transition commands, one for each world. This way, Mario reappears in the level he came from, even though this room is used in multiple levels. If you're wondering how the command encodes where within the screen to spawn Mario, here's the thing, it doesn't. When Mario enters a level from somewhere other than the start, there's only 2 locations he can appear from. The default is coming up from a pipe exactly 3 tiles to the left of the start of the screen boundary, 4 tiles from the bottom of the level. All of the levels with a bonus room had to be designed in a way that a pipe was sitting at this location for Mario to come out of. The second location is just appearing at the top of the level, which is used for the underground bonus rooms and returning from a cloudy bonus room. So there is actually a lot of specifications that are assumed by the game's level loading routine when it comes to the level data. That is, it has to be formatted appropriately for the level to be rendered correctly. Of course, all of the intended level data follows these specifications, but when loading glitch levels, or perhaps when trying to edit level data yourself, some of these assumptions can make things go really wrong. The first assumption I already mentioned earlier. All of the tile data objects and sprites must be listed in the order that Mario approaches them from left to right. This is because the game keeps track of what object should be the next one to load, and processes it when the corresponding column is loaded in. So for example, once this question block is loaded in, the next tile object in the list is this row of brick blocks. The game will hold the index of this brick block object in memory until the corresponding column loads in, at which it will switch to the next object in the list, which is this question block. If the objects are out of order, then the corresponding column will never appear, since it already loaded in the past and will not load again. This causes the routine to essentially lock up, and no more tile objects will be able to be processed from this point forward. So for example, if the X position of this question block were changed from 5 to 2, it and the rest of the objects here would not load. The game is waiting for column 2 to load in, but it will never load in since it already did 3 columns ago. There is one exception, that is, which is when the next screen is loaded. When the first column of a new screen is loaded, the game scans forward in the object list until it finds one with the next screen bit set. This will allow it to skip forward to the next screen without locking up. So in practice, when an object is out of order, it causes all of the rest of the objects on that particular screen to fail to load. This is why using the screen skipped object to go backwards in the level won't work properly. All of the objects specified after a backwards jump are all in the past, so to speak, and just won't show up. Objects that span over more than one column pose a problem. Since all of the tiles are loaded on the fly, if an object takes up more than one tile horizontally, the game has to keep track of that object's data. For example, this 5-tile wide brick object needs to be kept in memory while the game loads the next 4 columns. It's only until the last column that the game can forget about it, now that the entire object has been drawn. For this reason, there is a queue system put in place to hold the indices of objects that are currently in the process of being drawn. The level loading routine has 2 phases. In the first phase, it looks for new objects that start on this column and adds their offset into the object data table into the queue. Then, in the second phase, it processes each object that is in the queue by drawing the appropriate tiles to the screen, and removes any objects that end on this column. So all objects end up in the queue at some point, but any objects that are only 1 tile wide will enter the queue and leave within the same frame. This queue, however, is only 3 bytes long. This has 2 big repercussions. First is that the offset of each object is limited to 8 bits, meaning there can be a maximum of 128 objects in a single level. The second is that only 3 objects can ever exist in the same column at once. If the queue ever fills up with 3 objects, the game will immediately move on to the second phase of drawing those objects, even if there is a 4th object in that column. This results in the same problem as the out-of-order objects, since that 4th object is now in the past and will never load. This affects all objects, including the floor pattern and scenery change objects, with one exception, which is the screen skip object. Those are always processed and bypass the queue system altogether. This means that the design of every level also has to take into account this fact that you just can't have too many objects stacked on top of one another. For example, you may have noticed this part of 1-2 from earlier. This chunk of blocks is split up into a separate brick column object at the end so that the 1-up block can be placed in the ceiling while still only having 3 objects in this column. Now, there are some other finicky edge cases that involve combinations of out-of-order objects, more than 3 objects in a column, and screen skips that can allow for up to 5 objects to be drawn in a single column, but I'm going to have to leave that for a footnote video since it's extremely nuanced and will take way more time to explain than this video has time for. One last animation I would like to show in this video is how the game processes the level data while you're playing. Like I mentioned before, only 2 screens of the level are ever loaded in at once. The level is overwritten with new data as it disappears off the left side of the screen. In this animation, when a tile data object is loaded in, the entire object will show up at once but faded out a bit. It's only when the tiles are truly drawn to the screen do they become fully opaque. And of course, the level disappears behind Mario. I'm only showing level 1-1 here, but you can watch another video I have uploaded that shows off every level in the game. You can click the card that appears on your screen now, and there's also a link in the video description.
Alright, that's cool. Alright, there we go.
Some YouTube chat logs got leaked in. Man, it is bad. So YouTube
God damn it, why is my fucking screen?
staffers apparently deliberately aimed for viewer addiction. They actually killed safety tools for kids, and this was actually revealed in court documents. So some YouTube employees admitted that their goal was, quote, viewer addiction, and killed proposed safety tools for kids because they wouldn't provide a sufficient return on investment, according to bombshell court documents reviewed by the Post, which is the New York Post over here.
Jesus
It includes
Christ.
internal chat logs and presentations from YouTube employees.
I'm not surprised, but goddamn.
Because YouTube, Meta, Snap, and TikTok are all defendants right now in a bunch of court cases where they're actually getting sued for having social media addiction. In a deposition in the case last March, John Harding, a longtime vice president of engineering at YouTube, was confronted by plaintiff's attorneys with an internal email from June 7, 2012, in which a YouTube employee whose name was redacted stated the goal is not viewership, it's viewer addiction. Harding, who again is a very senior employee at YouTube, confirmed that the email was authentic, but dodged responsibility, claiming that staffers were discussing a, quote, video creation app that wasn't even built for viewers. The next portion of the exchange between Harding and the attorney is redacted. And this is obviously coming after last week when Google and Meta were actually found liable for social media addiction, and they were actually sued by this 20-year-old woman who claimed that she was addicted to their platforms that the companies had made, and they had to pay her like $6 million in damages or something like that. So obviously this contradicts public statements from executives who have claimed that the app was never meant to be addictive, and any harmful outcomes for kids are due to third-party content rather than its intentional app design choices. The problem with this and what's going to happen is that a lot of these age verification politicians who keep pushing ID age verification down our throats are probably going to be referencing this, saying, see, YouTube is addictive and they're trying to make it addictive. That's why everybody needs to hand over an ID. But anyways, during the state trial last month, YouTube executive Christos Goodrow testified that the app was, quote, not designed to maximize time, and the company doesn't, quote, want anyone to be addicted. The summer's federal case in Oakland, however, includes an internal YouTube presentation from April 2018 recounting study findings that, quote, excessive video watching is related to addiction and that it results in a quick fix of dopamine. So this is a screenshot from that alleged YouTube presentation. And as you can see, there's an addiction cycle over here. So you start off with using the platform, then you have guilt, and then there's an emotional trigger, craving, ritual, and then you go back to using it again. In YouTube's bullet points over here, they say watching short videos results in a quick fix of dopamine. Dopamine is related to feelings of reward, similar to feelings of reward when using, I'm not going to say that word because I'm probably going to get demonetized, or other addictive substances. Researchers feel that YouTube is built with the intention of being addictive, designed with tricks to encourage binge watching like autoplay recommendations, etc. These, quote, tricks have become routine, and technology and well-being need to meet. So obviously, this is a terrible look for YouTube. They always claim that, they have like the proper tools to make sure people don't get addicted to their platforms. And I, just my personal opinion, I honestly think that if your kid gets addicted to YouTube, as a parent, that is your fault. You need to be monitoring what they're doing on the internet. But it doesn't exactly look good for YouTube when their own employees are basically saying, yeah, we kind of want people to be addicted to these platforms. There were other screenshots from that internal YouTube presentation that were interesting, like this one. YouTube stickiness is caused by the interactive nature of our platform. YouTube allows for users to watch videos, but also to interact with creators and other viewers. Users receive notifications when someone makes a post or comment on the video. That interactive behavior gratifies user needs, causes users to feel that they must be aware of what is happening on the platform, and keeps users on the platform longer. It almost seems like a sick, twisted plan to keep people watching YouTube forever. Here's another one. Videos are initially used for quick mood management but result in excessive viewing. Survey research suggests that video watching is a common technique for mood management. Respondents reported watching cat videos to be in a more positive mood more quickly. Yeah, we went from watching real cat videos to a bunch of AI slop cat videos, but anyways, after one video is over, it is difficult to stop watching the videos. Ultimately, viewers experience feelings of guilt for spending so much time doing non-meaningful tasks. YouTube users control what they want to watch. YouTube
So it is
different from TV
intentional.
because users can decide what they want to watch. I think this bullet point is hilarious because now YouTube is making this big push into TV. But anyways, users will spend more time on the platform because they continue to watch things that interest them. Studies show that content people watch correlates with their personality characteristics, like sensation seeking, and notifications are a critical part of YouTube and contribute to addiction. Users are tempted to watch videos the moment they are uploaded. Yeah, so like I said, not a good look for YouTube. U.S. District Judge 𝙂𝙚𝙣𝙚 is presiding over a case that centralizes more than 2,000 pending lawsuits against social media firms that make similar allegations. A group of school districts has a trial date in June, while a coalition of state attorney generals will face off against big tech's attorneys beginning in August. So a Google spokesperson actually talked about this and said, these cherry-picked decade-old excerpts mischaracterize our responsible product design's work. In fact, they prove our teams proactively identify challenges to ensure our products prioritize high-quality, age-appropriate experiences. But the company's own research, however, estimated that an eye-popping 32 million users aged 13 to 24 years old were classified as habitual heavy use and watched more than 2 hours of videos per day, while 36 million users 18 to 24 said they regretted how much time they spent on YouTube in the past week, and that data was from 2018. But in those court findings, they were able to actually
Right
find
now,
some
I'm
more
mainly
recent stuff
focused
as well.
on getting
An
the hair
internal
done.
presentation titled
This.
Teen Unsupervised Viewer Well-Being and Safety, YouTube employees admitted that the app's infinite feed was a big part of the problem. Employees wrote that the app's two biggest challenges were video recommendations that normalize unhealthy beliefs or behaviors, and prolonged use that was displacing valuable activities like time with friends or sleep. These concerns are loudest on short-form content, which, now is worse than it's ever been, more popular with teens due to its lack of depth and infinite feed experience, the document said. Man, YouTube is going to be in trouble if the court sees Capwing's AI slop documentation over here, because short-form content is not only taking over YouTube, but it is worse than it's ever been. The documents, which range from 2012 through 2025, were unsealed in late February and compiled by the Tech Oversight Project, an online watchdog group that has emerged as one of big tech's most vocal critics. YouTube's posture in court is that they aren't a social media platform, but their own executives don't even buy that theory. These explosive documents show that YouTube set out to deliberately addict children and teens because it produced more screen time to deliver ads and more data to funnel into Google's surveillance business. They see our kids as pawns to make their next $1 trillion, and it's past time that we break this noxious status quo. Now, I totally agree with that, but what is going to worry me is that if these people use these statements to go ahead and push ID age verification themselves, because if they do that, then everybody is the bad guy here. YouTube has obviously messed up so many times. For years, my channel has been dedicated to just talking about how much YouTube keeps messing up. But again, we can't paint these guys as heroes either if they use all this information to say, see, social media is addictive. That's why we need everybody to hand over an ID. While discussing an internal presentation about YouTube's autoplay feature dated September 14, 2021, one employee asked if the team had explored tools aimed at helping users fall asleep. It was something we looked into, but it generally just wasn't as high a ROI compared to some of the other projects, a YouTube project manager replied. Elsewhere, in a 2019 strategy offsite presentation, employees wrote that YouTube's goal of driving more frequent daily usage is not well aligned with our efforts to improve digital well-being. And another document reveals that YouTube executives took steps to cover their tracks and prevent future scrutiny of its practices. During an April 2nd, 2025 deposition, James Besser, a senior YouTube executive focused on child safety, admitted that his team would keep, quote, history off in internal chat rooms, a move he claimed was intended to assist junior folks who would sometimes reread them and take things out of context. The plaintiff's attorney pressed Besser on whether anybody senior at YouTube had ever instructed him to turn off history on his chats, and he said, I don't recall ever being told that. The history off issue had popped up in other high-profile lawsuits involving Google. Multiple federal judges have ripped Google for destroying chat logs that should have been preserved, including U.S. District Judge James Donato, who furiously condemned the practice during a 2023 antitrust case as a, quote, frontal assault on the fair administration of justice that undercuts due process. So then a Los Angeles jury ordered Google and fellow defendant Meta last week to pay a combined $6 million in damages, with a YouTube parent responsible for 30% and Facebook and Instagram parent responsible for the other 70%. So yeah, like I said before, I am all for YouTube, Meta, and all these shady companies who go ahead and take our information to get punished. I am all for that, right? However, a lot of times when people try to punish these social media companies, they just use it as an excuse to do their own collection of data, which is the collection of our biometric data through ID age verification. So I am happy that YouTube got exposed, and hopefully they keep getting exposed for the bad practices, but I just hope it doesn't lead to more ID age verification, because I, as well as I'm sure you guys, are tired of being asked to hand over our information. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on the situation in the comments. Please leave a like in the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more. See ya.
So basically, I do understand, and I myself am glad YouTube got exposed, because one, they are weaponizing watch time recommendations and all that to pretty much keep everyone addicted on YouTube. And honestly, it is fucked. It turns out it's way more fucked up than we ever could have imagined. Alright. Come on. Oh, real quick. There we go. Alright.
Hello everyone, it's over. Among other corporations, Microsoft has been working on the age verification system, and it seems Windows will soon require an ID from you to operate. The recent cumulative update, KB5079473, dated March 10th, 2026, introduced a couple improvements
I feel like you legally cannot stop someone from using their PC because, well, that would be part of the Anti-Consumer Protection Act. So, like Apple, you're still allowed to use your device. You're just not allowed to download stuff from their app store. So I feel like that's gonna happen. You're not gonna be able to download anything from the Microsoft App Store, which that could easily be circumvented by pretty much saying "fuck you, Microsoft." Pretty much blocking all Microsoft IPs, all Microsoft server IPs, all Xbox server IPs, except for like when you need to sign into like for Minecraft. That's the only reason why you have to use that. Like, outside that, oh, I realized they could weaponize the Microsoft sign-in to prompt you to do an ID age verification, or else you're not gonna be able to sign into your Microsoft account. I could see them doing that.
Like, for example, they've improved the Windows Defender application control, the tool that's also incidentally used to lock down Windows 10 S and Windows 11 SE versions, along with the updates to AI components, specifically image search, content extraction, and semantic analysis. The changelog, however, fails to mention an extra hidden feature inside the system. So let's have a look at that. But more importantly, if you want to verify all that yourself, you can head over to the uupdump.net website, then select the latest public release build, and select your architecture. Mine is x64. Then select the update. Next, you can select any edition you want. And most importantly, you need to include updates. You need to tick that box to include updates. And then you can create the download package and get your ISO going. Okay, so we're going to install the latest Windows image, and let's get the image decompression out of the way. And we're in the out-of-box experience now. So this feature is fairly well hidden, and we'll have to fire up a couple commands here. But first, let me walk you through the normal process of setting up Windows through the 𝑖𝙗. So first, you set up the region, then the keyboard layout, and since like 2025, you're forced to have internet connectivity. You cannot skip that. So we have to connect our wire. There you go.
I mean,
Then we click next.
okay, I want to pause it right here. When you said you're forced to have internet connectivity to sign in, or to like make your Microsoft, like make an account on Windows, they legally cannot do that because that'll also be a part of the Anti-Consumer Protection Act. The pretty much a Consumer Protection Act, basically. Oh. So basically, the trick is to pretty much, okay, there's not gonna have to do anything with your router or stuff like that. The trick is to not connect to the internet at all. People immediately just connect to the internet and then they say, oh, I can't use a local account anymore. Yes, you can. You just need to restart the entire installation process. Just don't connect to the internet at all. Claim that you don't have internet, because how can Microsoft prove that you have internet or not? Because if they just don't let you do that, that can actually easily lead to a class action lawsuit. Because there are people out there who don't have internet. There are people out there who still don't have internet. So they legally cannot force you, they legally cannot stop you from like making an account. They're gonna let you make a local account if you're like, how can they prove that you don't have internet? How can Microsoft prove that? Sorry, there's a police officer speeding by, but like, I can say, how can Microsoft prove that you don't have internet? They can't. So they by complying both with both the Consumer Protection Act as well as the ID verification, they legally have to offer a local account. Even if they hide it, they can't actually pretty much remove it outright, because that'll actually be violating multiple laws, at least here in the United States. So just don't connect. If you still want your local account, do not connect to your internet at all. Just say, I don't have internet. It'll automatically prompt you to make a local account. You make your local account, and then once you sign in all the way through, then you connect your internet. For me, I use Ethernet. Because it's just simply just plug and play. Ethernet is like plug and play. But like, that's how pretty much the only way you can get a local account. You don't need Ethernet, you just need to just not connect your internet at all. Only once you sign in to the Windows desktop, that's when you can connect your internet, install all your drivers, stuff like that. Or if you want to go the extra step, is have like a separate laptop or something like that. Download all your drivers and programs that you need for like your PC, stuff like that, all the hardware, and then like install it. Like, try to get the MSI files, not the exe ones. Once you do that, so you also get your drivers as well, install and stuff like that. Once you do that, then you connect your internet, and then boom, done. But there's like a few bit extra step thing of pretty much blocking Microsoft servers from connecting PC, blocking your PC from connecting to Microsoft servers, and so on and so forth. It's just a whole mess. But after like you do all that, and then boom, your PC will be remaining like as snappy as ever, and pretty much like deploy it, get rid of the AI, deploy everything, and then boom, done. First, as we could need to do.
And we receive mandatory updates. And then you are coerced into connecting your Microsoft account if you even have one. There's not even an option to create a local account here, so you just press sign in. You don't have a way to create a local account on
I hate that the fact is that there's no way to create a local account. Just don't connect your internet in the first place and just don't connect your internet in the first place. They'll prompt you to make a local account. You make your local account, and pretty much prompt you, and then it'll sign you into the desktop. And once you're at the Windows desktop, you get what you need done, and then connect your internet.
this page either, so you're headed into sign-in options, and there is not even a way to do it here, so you just hop back and select the setup for work or school, and then you're again coerced into connecting your Microsoft account. Then you click on the sign-in options and you can domain join instead, which in reality means you can create a local account after all. Once you've completed that song and dance, you'll finally have the control over your computer. Now, let's run a magic command with this new update installed and present. Run dl32 flip svc.dll set idv policy 1. Just a moment. This command will enable the ID verification policy for the machine. We will reboot into the 𝙂𝙚 again shortly. Okay, we're in the 𝙂𝙚. So I'll just set everything up as usual. But once we domain join, here's what happens. Age verification. Please verify your age. We need to confirm your identity to ensure safety of your data. As you can see, we've got a Copilot icon here saying, please hold your ID up to the camera. and I don't have a camera set up in the VM, so I cannot continue. The continue button is just grayed out. It doesn't work.
Mm.
I cannot go back, and I cannot proceed either, because I'm not given an option. Microsoft Copilot is instructing me to scan my ID for some reason. Not that I have an ID on me right now. Actually, I don't even remember where I put it. Haven't seen it in a while. But anyways, why would I even want to show my ID to Microsoft? I don't need it to use the system. It's my computer. You don't need to ensure the safety of my data. I will ensure it myself. So my first idea is to just completely skip the obby. You don't need it to set up the machine. It's completely optional, actually. Thankfully, the command prompt is not blocked at all. Me and Flytech traced what the command does using Process Monitor, and it's setting a registry value called IDV policy under HKey local machine, software, Microsoft, Windows, current version, authentication, logon UI, and identity verify. There we go. Under that key, we've got 3 values. First one is IDV policy enabled, which is set to 1 after that command. Then we've got IDV policy level, which is set to 0. I don't really know what that is. And we've got a UUID, I guess, a telemetry ID. I guess this value is used for the age verification backend. Now, I can't really do anything with those values. I can see them, but I cannot modify them. As you can see, we get an error writing the values new contents, and we can also try deleting that, but we are unable to delete that. Next thing I checked was the ACL, and allowing myself full control over the key and its values, we get access denied, so we can't do that at all. So it's just basically not possible. There we go. So we can't do anything about these values. We can also try deleting the key itself. The values disappear, but no, they actually don't. I think it's the work of the user choice protection driver, the driver Microsoft previously used to prevent third-party browsers from setting themselves as the default one. That's really scummy from Microsoft, but, well, what more can we do? So the workaround I found to skip the age verification check with the IDV policy enabled flag set was to activate the administrator user by typing net user administrator active yes. The command completed successfully, then getting rid of the default user 0, and then rebooting the machine. The obby still appears and requests age verification after that move, but we can kill it again and it's going to activate the second chance obby, which won't request the ID.
There we go. Search for the line art there.
Now we get the second chance obby right here. What I deem super interesting is that Microsoft used ClipSVC, aka the client license service. Let me show you that real quick. We can look into the services menu and find the client license service right here. It's the service that basically manages the Microsoft Store DRM. And it looks like they're extending its functionality to gather sensitive data from people. The scariest part about this whole ordeal is how fragile our digital privacy is, and especially how easy it is to force people into sharing their identification to the third parties for unknown purposes. Looks like we're coming closer and closer to the global rollout of this forced ID verification on Windows. The decade of Linux is coming. Say no to age verification, and take care.
Say no to age verification, everyone.
When I was 6 years old, Mega Man Battle Network taught me that the future of technology meant that I could teleport into the computer and then fight off viruses as Mega Man. Now I'm 26 years old and I'm being force-fed content like this. AI and hardware inflation have arrived, unfortunately, and you know, it's just another big reminder that we fight
Everyone, do not search up AI inflation.
not with flesh and blood, but with principalities and evil in corrupt high places. And I'm gonna attempt to cut through this noise today about how the future of technology sucks by talking about the one thing that brings that like mid-2000s, 2010s level excitement about technology back into my soul. And this one thing that gets me hyped is the fact that everything is turning into a Steam Deck. There has been a huge wave lately of like mobile gaming, Android gaming, and just so many other things running and utilizing emulation to play all of our Steam games. And there's one device that I've been messing around with that really solidified this evolution for me, the Retroid Pocket 6. Obviously, this is not a Steam Deck, and I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you that it's the same thing. But the fact that it's even in the conversation at all, and it's this small and less than half the price of an actual Steam Deck OLED, it just tingles me. And the timing of this is just wild because you can't even buy a Steam Deck right now. They're out of stock. So it does beg the question, can something this small and much more affordable fill any part of the massive void that the Steam Deck has caused? But wait. Oh no, I think my grandma's outside again.
They say the future is digital, but my knees still analog. Everybody's online, but these hands make sure you stay in line.
Jesus
I
Christ.
survived way 2K. You think I care about AI? We used to blow cartridges and pray to God. My backlog is so big, I gotta put games in the will. Back in my day, hanging something on the wall required tools. Now it requires stickers.
Okay, I know I said I was trying not to be negative in this video, but I gotta complain for like just 2 minutes. Just a few days ago, I was browsing the internet trying to buy a NAS system, you know, like a home server. I wanted to build my own Google Drive and iCloud storage because I'm tired of paying subscriptions and I need a place to store my wife's sexy photos. I didn't know that this was just the enclosure, dude. So then I realized I needed to buy some hard drives for this whole thing to work. And then I looked at the price of hard drives and I lost it. Look, I'm sorry, Appa, you're just too expensive. And I really, really hate paying for iCloud and all those subscriptions. So good luck out there, man. Good luck. Good luck. I'll see you on the other side. Another sad part about this hardware inflation stuff isn't just my continued reliance on subscription model pricing, but also the fact that Valve's hardware has been delayed to an eternity. Valve announced a bunch of newer hardware that was marketed to be an open ecosystem, and genuinely, when I first saw this, I was like, wow, this is going to be a complete game changer. But then Will Smith eating spaghetti attacked. It feels like we're trapped in this house that's been bolted shut. There's no way of escaping, and this
The four nations lived in harmony until Will Smith eating spaghetti attacked. I have to. I didn't get some water. Get some water real quick. Oh shit. Seriously. Will Smith eating spaghetti, that's funny. Alright.
City is just getting destroyed actively. But if Will Smith eating spaghetti is King Ghidorah in this situation, then your Android handheld is Godzilla fighting back. The Retroid Pocket 6 right here is what inspired this entire video. It's the newest flagship from Retroid, and instead of it looking like a Steam Deck Mini, it's definitely got more of like a modern PSP kind of vibe. These guys are legends in the retro handheld space. They usually make the most recommended devices with relatively high-end specs, but without reaching like actual Steam Deck level price tags. This is the silver model, and it feels pretty great. We've got better ergonomics than the previous RP5 with like bigger bumps in the back, quieter buttons, which was a bit of a pet peeve of mine on the original, and then a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 upgrade with a 120 Hz 5.5-inch OLED screen. I love me some 5.5 inches. What's really cool is that Retroid also lets you pick if you want the stick or the D-pad on top, which is the first time that they've done this. And I went with the stick on top because, you know, most people buy these for retro emulation. But when I first saw this, I was like, hold on a second. Is this my Steam Deck Mini? Because of the insane work being done on Android translation layers, the line between a Steam Deck and an Android handheld is starting to blur a little bit here. You've probably already heard of Game Hub or Game Native at this point. These are Android-based apps that give you full access to your Steam library, allowing you to connect to it and then download your Steam games and play them natively on your device. You could do this on literally any Android device, even if you have an Android phone. You could download Steam games right this second. But this is the first time I'm personally seeing this entire ecosystem shrink down into a candy bar form factor with a flagship processor like this one from the RP6. And honestly, once everything gets set up in this type of form factor, it is exciting. Playing Steam games that are lightweight enough to run well on this thing gives you an experience that is incredible, dude. I'm telling you, this is exactly why I've always thought that a Steam Deck Mini or a Steam Deck Lite would sell really well, or just for the right person, you hit that exact area that they're lacking because of how big the original Steam Deck is. And honestly, just every handheld nowadays is becoming more and more massive. And most of the games that I play on my actual Steam Deck are just lightweight indie titles anyway. This thing is a machine for destroying roguelikes and smaller types of games that I don't have to worry about the frame rate. And while not all of them run perfectly here on the Retroid Pocket 6, when you come across a game that does, it feels like the definitive way to play that game. Because this way, I don't have to buy a giant pillow to hold up my hands. I'm sure at this point you've seen the same 4 games every single time when somebody talks about Steam on Android. Hollow Knight, Megabonk, Balatro, you know, all of the front runners of these lightweight indie games are so fun to show off because they show you that, hey, this is some serious stuff. But on top of the obvious, there are 2 main examples that I really want to show you that showcase, in my eyes, why this is special in the first place. Up first, we've got a sequel to a classic, Slay the Spire 2. This game isn't even officially out. It's still in early access, and you know, most of the time with things like this on Android or on mobile devices, you have to wait until the devs want to actually port it over onto Android and give you a release on the App Store. And that's assuming that these devs even want to do that and put their game next to block crazy Robo Worldcraft.
This is just Minecraft. How are they getting away with this?
Obviously, this game isn't available on the Play Store yet, but here I can download it onto my device and play the game natively. And it's still in early access, and I'm not repurchasing it on the App Store. It just really messes with my brain, dude. I'm able to play a brand new early access game on my small pocketable device that isn't a Steam Deck and doesn't run SteamOS. Like, what reality are we in? And the second game I want to highlight here is a game that my friend just put me onto, and it's another roguelike, and it's called The Vital Shell. It's very similar to Megabonk and Vampire Survivors, but instead you play as a mech, and it's all in this PS1 era style graphics, which is very nostalgic to look at, and you run around blowing everything up, and there's just a bunch of break beats that are playing in the background. It's awesome. And the reason why I bring this up is because it's a very niche game that's a lightweight indie game. And, you know, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this, and not even Game Native knows if this is compatible or not. But I was still able to download it, launch it, and play it absolutely perfectly out of the box. Playing these types of games is pretty much everything I would ask for out of a mini Steam Deck, dude. Just give me my PS1 mech shooters and breakbeats, and I'm a happy camper. I definitely don't want to oversell this device and just Android handhelds in general. Like, you're going to, majority of the time, just run into issues. Steam games, at least for me in my experience, are still very hit or miss on either Game Hub, Lite, or Game Native. Even something super lightweight like Mega Man Battle Network Legacy collection that I have on my Steam library doesn't even launch on either platforms, and that's like a port of a GBA game. I don't know what the problem is. And there are some games that will load and will launch, but they're just so demanding that you're either going to need the most powerful Android handheld on the market to run, or you could just, I mean, stream it. That's also an option. You might need to get something like the Odin 3, like max version, to run some of these games that are AAA. But then, you know, at that point, I might be in the minority here, but I just think that if you're spending like $400 to $500 on an Android handheld, like, that's just insane, dude. I don't know. Like, I'm seeing these dudes get 30 FPS in Elden Ring, and it looks really cool, and it's something to marvel at. But in my head, I'm just like, ooh, if somebody actually plays through all of Elden Ring on an Odin 3, I don't even have any words. Like, if you beat Cyberpunk with 15 frames, dude, you're a menace to society. You need to be like put under watch or something, dude. What is really cool though is that new resources and tools to get more frames are popping up left and right. Things like EmuReady is a newer resource that I haven't seen before tackling this video, and it's great. It's a resource where you can look up and specifically type in your device and your CPU, and then get other people who are showing you different types of games that they've tried and tested, and whether or not it's playable or a good experience. And newer drivers and updates do come out for these things, and there's always like some new technology that will give you a better experience, which is very exciting. And a lot of times you will be surprised at how big of a difference these settings and this community can help you get a better experience. So yes, this modern PSP or any Android handheld is pretty dang sick, but does it fill the void that the Steam Deck has caused, or at least give us a Steam Deck Mini? No. But to play devil's advocate here, I definitely think we're past the point of Windows emulation where we're just viewing it as a cute little side experiment, and it's now a legitimate way to consume these Steam games. Because so many titles are at a point where they're enjoyable on these types of devices. It's no longer, you know, haha, look what I got running on my goofy Android devices. It's just like, dude, I'm playing GTA 5 on my phone now. It's absolutely not at a point where you should just drop cash with your sole intention being to play Steam games on these devices. We're not there yet. But if you consider all of the other use cases for an Android device like the RP6, you know, it becomes a lot more compelling. First and foremost, these are retro gaming machines. They will knock almost any retro game out of the park on any given emulator up to and including PS2. But there is an area that I feel like a lot of people easily overlook on these Android devices, and it's simply just the Google Play Store. Now, huge, giant warning here. The Google Play Store and the App Store they're the worst, dude. Finding any games on these platforms or anything of quality is so difficult, dude. You gotta swim through like Arkansas honky-tonk Ozark levels of mud just to get to a quality product. But I have been seeing a lot of legitimate ports here lately. You know, you've got Balatro, Dead Cells has always been a classic. Subnautica Below Zero just got ported over here. Ball Pit is also on the Google Play Store. And there's even a port of Where Winds Meet, which looks insane for an Android game. There's definitely some good options here, and I'm hoping that as the popularity of these Android devices continues to explode, like we've seen with something like the 𝙂𝙚, then developers will be more incentivized to port their games over to Android, because, you know, all of us have these goofy little handhelds now. It's still a total disaster on the storefront, though. I do not envy anybody who has to figure out how to market their product on these app stores. It's so bad, dude. You're competing for attention against the most heinous applications on the planet.
Nightclub Simulator. And then the fourth picture is this. This is actually wild. You're telling me children are playing this?
So finally, when you stack up Android gaming and then high-end retro emulation, even game streaming for high-end stuff, with all of the Game Hub Lite game native Steam games, this is pretty good. I still refuse to call any of these like a Steam Deck Mini, but I would definitely say we've gotten to the point where it's a Steam Deck Mini Lite. PSP thing. I don't know. And we're lucky enough to see this slowly evolve and change over time, dude. I remember, 5 years ago what a retro handheld looked like. And, I don't really want to go back there. I think the reason we all love technology in the mid-2000s and even 2010s is because we were witnessing the evolution. We could see things change every single iteration of each device. And nowadays, it's just a lot harder to get excited about the tiniest little nuance of details that are changing and still asking for more money. I don't know why, but my brain is like thinking about the Wii U when I'm talking about evolution of technology. Even though people hated that thing, I always kind of liked it because it felt very quirky and it had a lot of charm to it, even though it was definitely, like the middle child between where Nintendo wanted to go with the Switch. But these awkward phases of technology bring all of the charm and personality, and that's where I think we're about to be at, if not already, with these retro handhelds. And in a world full of AI doom and inflating prices, I'll take awkward and exciting any day of the week.
She know nothing about me, know nothing about me. I want her around me, maybe she could love me.
Yeah, and thank you for getting copyright. Thank you for getting a video copyrighted there. Thank you for that.
The council chamber of the Jedi was silent, tense as the eve of a storm. Anakin Skywalker stood near the panoramic window, gazing at the lights
Oh, come on.
of Coruscant without truly seeing them. Mace Windu had been categorical. He should wait there while the Masters went to confirm the identity of the Sith Lord. But the waiting was torture. Every second that passed was a second in which Padme could be drawing closer to death, and he was the only one who knew it. Palpatine's promise echoed in his mind like a cruel mantra. There was a path to save the one he loved, and that path was being destroyed with every moment he stood still. Without warning, without rational deliberation, Anakin left the room and began walking toward the elevator. He could not stay still. He simply could not. The journey to the Chancellor's office seemed endless, and at the same time passed too quickly. Anakin crossed corridors, past guards who recognized his presence and did not dare question a Jedi Knight, and arrived at the doors of the upper office with his heart racing and his breath short. When the doors opened, what he saw stopped him in place as if he had struck an invisible wall. The office was destroyed, furniture overturned, shattered glass on the floor, lightsaber marks on the walls and ceiling. In the center of the room, Mace Windu stood with his deactivated saber in hand, and before him, on the floor, lay the body of Palpatine. There was no duel anymore. There was no threat anymore. There was only a body and a Jedi Master standing over it. Anakin felt the world collapse. It was not a gradual sensation, nor a thought formed with clarity. It was an abrupt rupture, as if the ground had vanished beneath his feet. He crossed the room in quick strides, his eyes fixed on the Chancellor's body, and his voice came out laden with an anguish he was not trying to hide. "What have you done?" he said, and the question did not sound like political accusation. It sounded like the cry of someone who had just watched his last hope be destroyed. Mace Windu turned and held his gaze with that closed, firm expression he always wore. But there was something different in the Master's look at that moment. A sharpened attention, almost surgical, as if he were reading something in the young man's words that did not yet make complete sense. He responded calmly, "I did what the code demands, Skywalker. The Senate was in the hands of a Sith Lord. That is over." But Anakin did not hear the answer. Not truly. "He could not die like this," Anakin said, and his voice had escalated to something between despair and rage. He stopped a few paces from the body and stared fixedly, as if the intensity of his gaze could reverse what had happened. You did not understand what he represented, Mace. You simply did not understand. Mace Windu crossed his arms slowly and studied him in silence for a moment long enough to be deliberate. Something was wrong with that reaction. A Jedi might feel sorrow over the path chosen, might question the decision made in an office without trial or witnesses, but that specific despair, that particular urgency in Anakin's voice, had nothing to do with politics or the code. It was personal. It was visceral. And Mace Windu was experienced enough to recognize the difference between principled outrage and personal pain. Anakin, the Master's voice sounded different now, lower, more direct. What had Palpatine promised you? The question fell into the air of the destroyed office like a stone cast into still water, and Anakin went completely still. He opened his mouth, closed it, and for a moment it seemed he would try to deny it, to construct some evasive answer, some half-truth that might redirect the course of the conversation. But Mace Windu's gaze gave no room for that. It was a gaze that had faced Sith Lords, had survived battles that had shattered entire squadrons, and was now completely focused on him. Anakin felt his defenses give way, not dramatically, but in an inevitable manner, like a dam that accumulates too much pressure. And then he said, he promised he could save Padme from death. The silence that followed was absolute. Mace Windu did not react with an outburst. He did not raise his voice, but his eyes narrowed slightly, and when he spoke, each word was placed with surgical precision. Padme, Senator Amidala. It was not a question. Anakin did not respond immediately, but the silence was already an answer, and both of them knew it. The Jedi Master approached slowly, 2 steps only, and his expression had shifted to something Anakin had never seen in him before. It was not anger, not immediate judgment. It was something graver than that, something that carried the weight of understanding that the problem before him was far greater than a dead chancellor on the floor. You married her, Windu said, and this time it was indeed a statement. Anakin finally looked at him directly, and in his eyes there was fear and relief and exhaustion all at once. The fear of someone who had carried a secret too heavy for too long. Yes, he said, we are married. It was time for Anakin to face the consequences of everything he had chosen to hide. The news of Palpatine's death spread through Coruscant like fire across dry fields. Before the sun of that morning had finished illuminating the towers of the Galactic Senate, entire corridors of the planet city were already whispering Mace Windu's name. The holojournal feeds replayed images of the destroyed office, the lightsaber marks on the walls, the Chancellor's body photographed by some official who had arrived before the Jedi could isolate the scene. The Senate convened an extraordinary session that same day, and the atmosphere inside the Golden Dome was unlike anything any senator had experienced in decades. There was anger, there was fear, there was barely disguised political opportunism, and there was, above all, the collective sense that this moment would change the Republic in a way that no one could yet fully measure. The Jedi, who for generations had been the guardians of peace, were now the accused. The trial of Anakin Skywalker before the Jedi Council took place 2 days before the political proceedings in the Senate, and was conducted with a gravity that made clear none of the masters present were there to find a convenient way out. The council chamber was full, and every occupied seat carried the weight of someone who had dedicated their entire life to the Order. Anakin stood at the center as he had stood so many times before, but this time there was no mission ahead, no commendation awaiting at the end. Mace Windu presented the facts without embellishment. The secret marriage to Senator Amidala, the emotional entanglement that had led Anakin to share council secrets with Palpatine, and the revelation of the promise made by the Sith Chancellor in exchange for loyalty. Yoda listened to everything in silence, his eyes half closed, and when his turn came to speak, his voice sounded more tired than any of those present had ever heard it. Suffering, he hid. Alone, he carried it. The path to the dark side, this burden always was. Anakin did not attempt to defend himself in an elaborate manner. He had spent the last 48 hours in a state of emotional exhaustion that surpassed anything he had felt on the battlefield, and when he finally spoke before the council, his voice was steady but stripped of the intensity that had usually marked his words.
Alright, let me do this
He
real
said that
quick.
he loved Padme, that he had loved her since he was young, that the fear of losing her had been greater than his judgment, and that he knew it. He said he had been wrong to keep the secret, to draw close to Palpatine, to let despair guide his decisions instead of the wisdom the Order had tried to teach him. But he also said, with a clarity that surprised even Mace Windu, that he did not regret having loved, only having let that love become a weakness others could exploit. The council deliberated for hours. The decision, when it came, was inevitable. Anakin Skywalker would be removed from the Jedi Order. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Senate, the political proceedings against the Jedi ran in parallel with a speed that revealed how extensively that session had been prepared before any formal investigation. Senators who for years had smiled at Jedi Masters in corridors now took the podium to speak in the name of democratic sovereignty and the protection of institutions. The central argument was simple and devastating in its simplicity. The Jedi had assassinated the elected Chancellor of the Republic inside his own office, without warrant, without trial, without any legally recognized process. That Palpatine had been a Sith Lord was a claim made by the Jedi themselves, and who, demanded the most inflamed senators, had given the Jedi the right to be judge, jury, and executioner at once. Bail Organa tried to call for moderation and proper investigation, but was outvoted in a chamber that had decided the outcome before the session was opened. The vote was overwhelming. The Galactic Senate, by a wide majority, approved the resolution declaring the Jedi Order an organization of excessive power and inadequate oversight, and mandating the immediate vacating of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant and the departure of all Order members from the planet within 72 hours. It was not technically a declaration of criminality. The Senate's lawyers had been careful enough to avoid that specific term, but the practical effect was the same. The Jedi were expelled. Their accounts within the Republic were frozen, their access to Senate archives revoked, and an official declaration circulated throughout all affiliated systems informing them that the Jedi Order no longer represented an institution recognized by the Galactic Republic. Mace Windu received the official notification still inside the temple and stood on the balcony gazing at the city he had protected for decades, without saying a word. The days that followed were of silent and painful dispersal. The Jedi who were still on Coruscant gathered in the temple one last time, not for a ceremony, not for a formal address, but simply to look at one another and acknowledge that this version of the Order had come to its end. Yoda departed quietly, without announcing a destination. Obi-Wan Kenobi stayed until the last possible moment, helping the younger ones organize what they could carry, and when he finally boarded his ship, he looked at the temple for a long moment before closing the hatch. Other masters and knights scattered to distant systems, some to planets where they had allies, others simply to wherever hyperspace would take them. Anakin Skywalker, who at that point was no longer officially a Jedi, did not need to be expelled from the temple. He had already decided his destination the moment the Council's judgment concluded. He went directly to find Padme, and together they departed for Naboo, the only place that still felt anything like home.
Yeah.
Naboo received the late afternoon with a golden light that spread slowly over the lakes and the vegetation-covered hills, and it was in that light that Luke and Leia Skywalker came into the world. The birth took place at the villa of Varekino, at the family's residence, far from the holofeeds and the political intrigues still shaking the galaxy. Padme had insisted on that place with a firmness that Anakin did not try to question, because he understood Naboo was the only corner of the galaxy where the two of them could exist without carrying the weight of what they had been, of what they had lost, of what the universe had done to them. When the twins were born, Anakin stood beside Padme holding them both at once, one in each arm, and for a long silent moment he simply looked at them. There was no formed thought in that instant. There was only that sensation the Force sometimes produced when something true and inevitable happened, an absolute clarity, as if everything that had come before had been necessary to arrive precisely here, in that room, in that light. Luke was quiet and attentive from the earliest days, with eyes that seemed to observe everything around him with a gravity strange for a newborn. Leia was different, more intense, more present, reacting to sounds and movements with a vitality that made Padme laugh even in moments of exhaustion. Anakin spent hours with the two of them, and anyone who saw him during that period would have difficulty recognizing the impulsive young man who had destroyed training rooms and disobeyed Master's orders out of sheer impatience. There was something different in him now, something that settled. It was not resignation, it was anchorage. For the first time in his life, Anakin Skywalker had something to live for that did not depend on proving anything to anyone, on being the strongest, the fastest, the chosen one of prophecy. He was a father, and that simple, concrete, irreversible fact began to reorganize something deep within him, layer by layer, day by day. The emotional stability that had been absent from Anakin throughout his entire formation as a Jedi began to build during that period in Naboo in a way that would have surprised anyone who had known him before. The Force, which had always responded to his emotions in an almost uncontrollable manner, amplifying anger, amplifying fear, amplifying desire, began to respond to something different. There was a calmer presence in the way he accessed it now, not the absence of feeling, but a different relationship with it. He meditated in the early morning before the twins woke, seated at the edge of the lake with his feet in the wet grass, and in those meditations he began to perceive things the training rooms of the temple had never shown him. His powers did not diminish with his departure from the order. They grew. They grew in a way he could not explain in technical terms to any master, but which he felt with absolute clarity. It was as if the removal of a constant pressure had allowed something far greater to expand naturally. But the universe did not pause for newborn children or for fathers who needed peace. Palpatine's death had not ended the war. It had merely created a power vacuum that was filled with a speed that shocked even the most cynical political analysts on Coruscant. Mas Amedda, who had served as vice-chancellor for years and knew every corridor of Republican power better than any elected senator, took control of the situation with a skill that revealed how much he had learned at Palpatine's side. He did not try to be Palpatine. He was more discreet, more institutional in appearance, but the plans continued. The fleets continued to be built. The negotiations with the Separatists continued to be manipulated behind closed doors. And the war, which had seemed close to resolution at various moments, dragged on and intensified with a persistence that began to erode the Republic at its foundations. Anakin followed the news with an attention that Padme recognized as genuine concern, different from the anxiety of before. He was no longer a soldier without context, obeying orders and believing that military victory would resolve anything. He was a father looking at the galaxy where his children would grow up, and what he saw troubled him in ways he could not ignore. "This war will not end the way they promise," he said one evening to Padme while she nursed Leia and he held Luke in his arms near the window. "Amedda is using the same pieces as Palpatine, except no one is seeing it because they are looking at the Separatists." Padme watched him for a moment before responding, "And what will you do with that, Anakin?" He did not answer immediately, but the question remained. Contact with Obi-Wan Kenobi had been maintained throughout that entire period, spaced but consistent. They communicated through secure channels that Obi-Wan had configured before leaving Coruscant, and the conversations carried a different tone from those during the war years. Less operational urgency, more honesty. Obi-Wan had installed himself temporarily in a system on the Outer Rim, without revealing exactly where, and though he never said so directly, Anakin perceived between the lines of his messages that his former master was as lost as any other exiled Jedi, only with more discipline to conceal it. "How are they?" Obi-Wan asked in one of the first transmissions after the twins were born, and there was a genuine tenderness in his voice that Anakin had never associated with the man who had been his master. "Perfect," Anakin replied. "Luke has your furrowed brow and Leia has your commanding voice." Obi-Wan laughed, a real laugh, not his usual polite smile, and for that brief moment the two were simply two men talking about newborn children. The war reached Naboo gradually and then all at once. First came the reports of Separatist fleets moving toward the sector, then transmissions of neighboring systems being attacked. Then the day when Naboo's long-range sensors detected ships entering the system without authorization and the alarm sounded in the city of Theed for the first time in years. Padme, who was still technically a senator even with the Republic in institutional collapse, convened the local Security Council. But everyone in the room knew that Naboo did not have sufficient military strength to hold back a large-scale attack. It was at that moment that Anakin appeared at the meeting without having been summoned, with Luke and Leia left in the care of Dorm in the residential wing, and said with a calm that silenced the room, "I know the approach routes of this system better than any Separatist commander. Give me what you have, and I will show you what can be done." No one questioned it. The first missions were surgical and swift. Anakin flew as he had always flown, with an intuition that surpassed any onboard computer calculation. But there was a different precision now, an economy of movement that revealed someone who had stopped trying to impress and had simply begun to be efficient. He destroyed separatist outposts in the outer rings of the system, deactivated reconnaissance probes before they could transmit data, and organized Naboo's local forces into defensive patterns the pilots had never attempted before but which worked with a consistency that began to build confidence. After the third successful mission, he transmitted a complete situation report to Obi-Wan, not asking permission, simply sharing information as two equals. And at the end of the message, without drama, he said, "I am going to need help. Can you come?" Obi-Wan arrived at Naboo 2 weeks later, and the reunion was unlike anything the two had experienced before. There was no official mission, no council behind either of them, no hierarchy of Master and Padawan to organize the dynamic between them. There were two Jedi, one of them technically a former Jedi, who needed to work together to protect a planet. Obi-Wan observed Anakin operate for 3 days before making any comment, accompanying tactical planning sessions, conversations with the local pilots, mediations with the Security Council. On the fourth night, seated together on the residence's balcony with the lake mirroring the stars, Obi-Wan said simply, "You have changed." Anakin looked at him sideways. For better or for worse? Obi-Wan considered the question seriously. "For real," he replied. The decision to call Mace Windu was not Anakin's. It was Obi-Wan's, and he made it after realizing that the scale of the problem was growing beyond what 2 Jedi and a local guard could contain. The transmission was direct and without preamble in Obi-Wan's manner. Situation on Naboo, insufficient resources, Anakin Skywalker present leading the defense, request for reinforcement. Mace Windu's reply took 2 days, which Obi-Wan interpreted as serious deliberation. When it came, it was equally direct. He would come, but he wanted to speak with Anakin before committing to anything. The conversation took place by holocom and was tense in the first minutes. Between them lay all the history of Palpatine's office, the trial, the expulsion, words said and unsaid. But Mace Windu was above all pragmatic, and when Anakin presented him with the complete mapping of the Separatist attack routes and the layered defense plan he had developed, the Master was silent for a moment before saying, "You built this on your own?" Anakin said yes. Windu said, "I am coming." Mace Windu's arrival on Naboo brought with it, almost organically, others. The informal network that had formed among the exiled Jedi transmitted information slowly but consistently, and when word spread that Windu had joined a defense operation on Naboo under Anakin Skywalker's coordination, other masters and knights began to appear. Some came out of loyalty to Windu, others out of respect for Obi-Wan, others simply because they needed a purpose, and this was the only one that seemed concrete and immediate. There was no formal structure, no reconstituted council, no title or ceremony designating Anakin as leader of anything. But it was what happened naturally. In planning meetings, everyone looked to him when a decision needed to be made. On missions, everyone followed his lead without anyone needing to determine it. Mace Windu, who had doubted Anakin for years with legitimate reasons, watched this with an expression no one could fully read, but which Obi-Wan, who knew him well, described in a private conversation with a single word: respect. The Separatist assaults against Naboo were repelled one by one, each attempt to penetrate the system meeting a more coordinated and precise resistance than the one before. The last great offensive arrived with a considerable fleet through the southern sector, in a formation designed to overwhelm multiple defensive points simultaneously. Anakin had anticipated that formation 3 days earlier, based on the patterns of the previous assaults, and had repositioned the forces in a way that seemed counterintuitive to everyone in the planning room, until the moment the enemy fleet appeared exactly where he had said it would. The combat was intense, but the outcome was decided when Anakin personally led the Central Squadron in a maneuver that cut the Separatist chain of command before the flank could reorganize. When the last ship retreated to hyperspace, Mace Windu stood looking at the tactical displays and said, low enough for only Obi-Wan to hear. He saw that before it happened. Obi-Wan nodded without surprise. He always saw. He had just not learned to trust it. Padme had observed everything with political eyes that never stopped functioning. She knew the Senate better than most of those who served there, knew when there was room for an argument that weeks before would have been impossible, and the victory on Naboo had created that room. She departed for Coruscant with careful preparation, having spent days mapping votes and anticipating objections. When she took the podium of the Galactic Senate, her argument was simple and documented. The Jedi had defended Naboo when the Republic had no resources to do so, and the war continued expanding across multiple fronts without sufficient strategic leadership. She proposed the temporary reintegration of the Jedi as an auxiliary force under senatorial supervision, without immediate restoration of institutional privileges. Mas Amedda opposed it with a vehemence that revealed how greatly the proposal threatened him, invoking Palpatine's death and the danger of returning power to an organization that had acted outside institutions. It was a skillful speech, but Padme had done her work before arriving in that room. When the vote was opened, the numbers came in with a consistency that Amedda could not stop. The majority voted yes. The Jedi returned to operating, and the difference was immediate. Anakin coordinated operations with a systemic vision that impressed even the Republic's generals, choosing where his presence would make the greatest strategic difference and allowing the other masters to operate with genuine autonomy in the secondary theaters. Mace Windu acted on the core front with an efficiency that showed the years of exile had in no way diminished his capacity. Obi-Wan worked in the mid-rim sectors with the patience and precision that had always defined him. And gradually, mission by mission, system by system, the tide turned. The decisive shift was not a single dramatic moment, but a series of moves built one upon another over months, each victory creating conditions for the next. When the last great separatist stronghold fell and the leadership of the movement accepted to negotiate the formal cessation of hostilities, there was one name that appeared repeatedly in reports and transmissions throughout the galaxy. The name of a man without official title who had been present at the decisive moments with a consistency that could not be explained by talent or training alone. The Force had acted through him in a way that required no debate. The Chosen One had fulfilled what the prophecy foretold, not in the way anyone had imagined, but in the only way that had been possible. The Galactic Senate voted the return of the Jedi 3 months after the formal end of the war. Amedda had been investigated and removed from office during the final period of the conflict, when documents linking his administration to Palpatine's original plans came to light through an investigation conducted by Bail Organa with patience and determination. Without him, the opposition to the Jedi's return fragmented, and the vote was approved by a margin that surprised even the most optimistic. The ceremony of return to the temple on Coruscant took place on a clear afternoon, with a Jedi presence smaller than it had been before the war, but which carried something the old body had not always possessed: the experience of having survived exile and chosen to return not out of institutional obligation, but out of conviction. Yoda was not among those who returned. Obi-Wan had transmitted to Dagobah personally, and the eldest master listened to everything in silence before responding with a serenity that was not defeat, but discernment. Ended, my time has. What comes now belongs to those who remained standing. Obi-Wan did not insist. The election of Anakin Skywalker as Grand Master was not unanimous, but it was clear. Mace Windu was the first to propose the name, which silenced the room for a moment before Obi-Wan seconded the nomination with a composure that made clear he was not surprised. There was debate and legitimate questions about precedence, about what it meant to have a Grand Master who had been expelled from the Order and who had a wife and children. Anakin answered each question with skill and without defensiveness. When someone raised the matter of his marriage to Padme, he said that the Order returning to the temple did not need to be identical to the one that had left it, and that perhaps part of what had failed before was precisely the distance between what the Jedi professed about compassion and what they allowed their members to live. Mace Windu, hearing this, tilted his head slightly, and those who knew him knew that gesture was the closest he came to publicly agreeing with something that had cost him dearly to accept. The vote was conducted, and Anakin Skywalker was elected Grand Master. Obi-Wan was at his right hand when the results were announced, and said quietly, with a smile that carried pride and relief in equal measure, "Grand Master." Anakin looked at him for a second, nodded, and then turned to the assembled masters and began to speak. In that room, as his voice echoed among the seats of the renewed council, Anakin Skywalker finally understood what the prophecy had always meant. Balancing the Force had never been a matter of destroying one side or the other. It had been a matter of integrating what was broken, of bringing back what had been lost, of building something true upon the ruins of what had failed. He had arrived at the Order as a boy afraid of losing everything, had left it as a broken man, and had returned as something no title could fully describe. Outside, in some apartment on Coruscant, Padme was putting Luke and Leia to sleep. On Dagobah, an old master closed his eyes in peace, and in the Jedi Temple, for the first time in a long time, there was light.
Aww. Honestly, based as fuck. I'm gonna try to make sure everything is in order here. Wait, shit. Keep on drawing on the wrong layer. Right now, just the flat colors. Okay. Go ahead. All right. Yes. I'm gonna see what this setup is about. All right. I figured what that was about, but I'll figure that out later. All right.
All right.
Let's watch some Star Wars Rain Rock.
All right, R2, let's blow that freaking base up and save the galaxy. And now I just shit my diaper.
Oh.
Let me handle the talking. I'm a playboy.
She joined.
Oh, hey, so, you know, what is going on?
Listen, you two weirdos. Get those freaking clankers off my planet or I'll get angry.
We would love to see you get spicy.
All right, I'll send my best pilots and a professional pod racer to destroy you.
A professional pod racer? Are you kidding me?
See you in Valhalla then.
You did
what? Wow.
Well, we tried to outsource the mission and let a boy do the dirty work.
And what's the boy doing now?
Not much. He failed the mission successfully.
You guys really aren't the brightest cherry on the cake.
Obi-Wan, go stand in the corner and think about what you've done.
Sí, señorita.
So what about the droid attack on Naboo?
Finally, it's getting a change.
I give up. Roger, roger.
Oh, what a pleasant surprise. I knew you couldn't say no to me. You look even more dangerous in real life. I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
Viceroy, your occupation here has ended.
Blow them up!
Oh, man. This job is so boring.
What about... wait, never mind.
I think we should recruit a new member for our council. We still have one seat unoccupied.
Care about that decision? I do not. A fat dump I have to take.
A fat dump I have to
Sorry for my
take.
delay. My toilet wouldn't flush. I really appreciate your presence, Mr. Binks.
Misa's so happy to help you, sir.
Great. Let's get into the details then. You need to eliminate 3 targets, 2 Jedi, and a flying elephant who owes me money. The 2 Jedi are the higher priority. Are you listening to me, Mr. Binks? I thought you were a professional.
Yes, Misa, very professional.
All right, let's get started then.
Very
Before
professional.
I forget, this is my new apprentice. I got him on eBay with a 30% discount. Peace out, bitches.
Mr. Binks, we've located the 2 Jedi targets in your area. Lure them into the trap, and the droids will take them out.
Help! Help! Misa need help!
I'm coming, stranger! Come on, hop on me!
Oh, this very close. Yusa saved Misa life.
And we're safe here now?
Yusa very safe.
I guess I'll have to trust you, but you're kinda sus.
No, Misa, no imposter. Misa wondering where the other Jedi Knight be.
He's my boyfriend.
Well, Yusa damn idiot's gonna get absolutely blasted.
Lol. Lol. Oh my
I
god.
can't believe we're being hunted by...
Hold on. Gangster Jar Jar Binks is real. Gangster Jar Jar Binks cannot hurt you. Gangster Jar Jar Binks. Lol.
Obi-Wan, I can't believe we're being hunted by a freaking frog.
Misa gonna claim that juicy bounty of Yusa smelly maggots.
Thank God. I think we managed to lose him.
Surprise, motherfuckers!
Come here. The dude in the tight leather cosplay is our new supervisor.
Oi, mate. Do you really think I can take that cape freak seriously?
What's up, dude? Can you show me the wallpaper design for my new room?
Sure, my lord. This is design number 1.
Oh yeah, this looks badass.
This is design number 2. Wait, no. Where is...
My lord, we ran into some technical difficulties. Please try again later, Vader.
General Veers, you are fired.
Okay, assholes.
Oh man, I love my job. This sunset is so beautiful.
It's actually night outside.
Night outside? I think you guys must be seeing stars or something.
You know, at night it's darker than outside.
You're a smart one.
Lord Vader, we're detecting a massive object emerging from hyperspace.
No jokes about my mother.
Massive joke.
So Patrick, what do you have for me?
No jokes about my mother.
The Emperor is asking for you.
How How can I be at your service, my master?
Dude, I just took the fattest dump ever.
Thanks for providing me with such useful information, my Grand Overlord.
I invited the best bounty hunters I could find on bookyourbountyhunter.com. You must test their skills, and we will use the best bounty hunter to collect bounties as a side business.
It will be done.
Yes, yes.
Wait a second, where is Padme?
Well, she's currently kinda dead. But if you hurry up, you might catch the next bus to the funeral.
Here's a good girl.
Hi, darling. Sorry for my delay. The bus driver stopped for some school younglings. I told him not to, but he just wouldn't listen.
It's okay, Annie.
Wait, what? You are still alive?
Yes, of course, you dummy. I just wanted to claim the insurance money.
Oh, that's my girl.
Misa's so hyped for the big after party.
Oh.
Yo, Mike G, come here, friend. Ready to overdose on spice?
What's up, you idiots?
Hi, you useless piece of shit.
Trust me, these coins are going to the moon.
Hi, dude. Is this the after party?
Yeah, it is. What's your name?
My name is Darth Vader. I mean, Dave Walter.
Oh man, good one.
Come on, you two. Jar Jar wants to take a group photo of us.
Follow us, Dave.
Okay. Maybe it isn't too bad being among the rebels.
Everybody say cheese.
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 I'm gonna go.
I can somehow still feel Qui-Gon's presence.
Right you are, but the presence of this delicious roast pig I feel as well. So juicy and so crispy.
Oh man, I'm so hungry. Hopefully it isn't too chewy.
Mom, look! I got accepted to the school!
My goodness, but that's so wonderful, Annie.
Hello, you two.
Dad?
What's up, son?
Oh my god, you're alive! I missed you so much.
Daddy made the terrible mistake of prioritizing his career. This won't happen again. Trust me on this one.
Yes, yes. What's for lunch, Mom?
What about youngling spare ribs with mashed potatoes?
Oh man, that sounds fabulous.
Who wants some of my bantha milk?
All of it, please.
This food very delicious.
Who is that young lady sitting in front of me?
Oh yeah, that's my girlfriend.
Isn't she a bit too old for you?
We don't go by age in the Outer Rim.
Let's just hope Yoda doesn't get wind of that.
Oh no. Okay, I'm going to do.
Dad, I'm so glad you're back home. You have no idea how much I missed you.
Qui-Gon, are you up for a lightsaber fight in bed?
And you have no idea how much I missed that.
Be brave. Don't bully too many younglings.
I try my best, Mom.
All right, dude, the school is waiting.
Alright, let's see here. Legs. Do this real quick. There we go. Amen. Oh. Come on. What the fuck? Alright.
Hello, guys and gals. Me, 𝙂𝙚, and you know, it is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. April 1st, the day to install Windows finally again. You know, Windows 11, going back to it. Enough LARPing as a Linux user, ladies and gentlemen. You know, simple today. I woke up, got myself a little gun, decided to shoot my computer.
Hey, yo.
Almost fucked around with a TOS there, didn't we? But I decided to shoot my computer in the goddamn legs, figuratively speaking, of course. And I considered that, you know, I missed the days where my operating system was bloated. I missed the days where I had to install digital Ozempic and de-bloat the entire system so that I could gain the extra performance that I would lose. Because there was a lot of features that Windows had that I was really just missing, ladies and gentlemen. One of those particularly was Copilot. You know, I miss my little brain dead Clippy. I miss my little short bus pal. I figured, you know what? If I'm going to use a computer, I'm going to use it agentically. Ladies and gentlemen, I figured, you know, at the end of the day, why use an open source system when I can pay a license to Microsoft and get rid of that creepy little purchase tab in the bottom right? That's where my mind was at. No, in
𝙂𝙗 has
reality,
lost his
ladies and
sanity.
gentlemen, as you can imagine, you know, for anybody that isn't from the Americas, for anybody that doesn't celebrate, you know, April 1st or April Fools, it's actually one of my favorite holidays. The only day of the year where you cannot trust anything on the internet and you are allowed to do internet misinformation and some shenanigans. No, but honestly, I wanted to take this video as a way for me to kind of show you sort of like a 6-year-long Linux journey. You know, I've been using Linux for quite a while. I've been using the old Penguin here and there, and a lot of it wasn't because I wanted to be different from the crowd and use something that, you know, I didn't want my computer to be like all the other ones out there. No, in reality, this whole situation started because I'm going to be completely real with you. I was getting fed up with Windows. back in the days of Windows 10. You know, back when I realized that, you know, updating my computer, back when I realized that Microsoft was constantly getting rid of all of the digital, like, de-bloating that I was doing and bringing in features that I consistently got tired of. Now listen, you can always bitch and complain about something, or you can take the initiative like the fat Indian here and switch. Now, it's fun to me that back in the day when it came to Microsoft Windows, like, this is a video from, like, literally 17 years ago, where people were showcasing, like, how Windows worked, and this guy's using, like, a digital 3D cube to navigate multiple desktops. It's funny, nowadays, every operating system has, like, multiple workspaces, but back then, when I was a kid, I was literally looking at all of this shit, and I was blown away. Like, the fact that this guy had a little cube that he could move around made it look like the system was from the future. You know, back in the day, you had little cool desktop effects like this, which would unnecessarily consume your memory, graphic memory, which was pretty sparse at the time. You would have shit like this, and it would blow me away. So when I was like a younger kid, I downloaded like Debian, Ubuntu, one of those, one of the Ubuntu or Debian-like distros. I installed it, and then I realized, wow, you really can't do much with Linux. You know, back in the days of Linux, doing this shit was cool, but running a video game was borderline impossible. Back then, just installing your game underneath Linux and trying to launch it was the actual game. Fuck playing the actual game, who cares? The fact that I got it running underneath Linux that wasn't Windows was already a mind-blowing experience. Using Linux and trying to navigate basic things felt like doing arcane magic probably over 10, 12 years ago. Now, the reason I talk about this is because everybody that I mention this stuff to now, they always say,
Alright.
Linux is super difficult, 𝙂𝙚. If I have to open up that terminal one more fucking time, I'm not using it. People get scared of shit like this. People get scared of typing things into the terminal. And for me, I really never understood that. I never really got that. It's just, listen, at the end of the day, things can be a little bit different. And even when it comes to Linux, bitch, you don't gotta use the terminal. There's a GUI thing for basically everything these days. Now, one of the things that like really got to me about it too is like, obviously nowadays when it comes to gaming, I play a lot of older titles like Commandos, for instance. And it's just interesting to me that when it comes to older Windows titles, running them through Wine underneath Linux just gives me better compatibility than sometimes running them directly underneath modern versions of Windows. And a lot of that just comes back with compounded updates and like compounded like a history of code, a history of code, a history of patches, and a history of work that has been done through Wine for years, which is the tool we use to run Windows programs translated directly to Linux. That just allows me to run older games pretty well, and it's so easy on Linux now that even running games like Crimson Desert, which launched literally a couple weeks before, a cutting-edge game with cutting-edge graphical techniques runs completely underneath Linux without an issue. And I was reading literally a few weeks ago that, I don't know, there was like an NVIDIA update underneath Windows that started causing issues. And it made me realize that we're at a point where literally having, updates and feature updates, driver updates in Linux have gotten to a point where even cutting edge releases, like cutting edge distributions like CachyOS, have ironically felt stabler than Microsoft Windows, at least in my personal experience. You know, the only real gaming thing that's kind of left, to me at least, and this goes for most like remaining Windows software, are things like anti-cheats or the, small amount of professional stuff that exists that does require Windows. So for people that need CAD software, for people that need the Adobe editing suite, obviously Windows is kind of one of your only options, or you can go buy a Mac. But when it comes to things like anti-cheat games like Call of Duty, God forbid, Battlefield, or games like Marathon that I'm kind of into recently, you do need kernel-level anti-cheat. Unfortunately, Linux does not really do that. Even though it's interesting that now you've got, actual efforts from EA, where apparently they've got a senior anti-cheat engineer, and down over here they're mentioning, hey, listen, we gotta chart a path for the anti-cheat to support hardware and OS in the future, like Linux and Proton. You know, it's interesting that years ago, companies wouldn't even acknowledge things like Linux. And now it's to a point that, because of Valve, because of the Steam Deck, and a lot of people just kind of jumping ship, companies are kind of starting to consider it. You know, that user base is growing slowly but surely. You know, it's interesting when I make videos where I show people how to run Windows programs underneath Linux, they do exceptionally well. And I don't think it's because I'm necessarily an entertaining Indian, it's just because this Indian showed you how to run the fucking program. You know, it really isn't difficult for somebody to go to a website like
Yeah, exactly.
CashOS, download the actual desktop version, and just install Cash.
So far with all this, obviously it took a little bit longer than I initially expected to. But I got the flat color, some of the actual line art redone in flat colors as well. And I'm pretty happy with it, really. This one, I could just... that. So base as fuck. Obviously, I'm gonna need to do have a little bit of yeah. Try to make sure I'll line up correctly. Arm then there, and then start from there. There. And from there. Here. Ah, shit. From there, obviously. Alright. Jesus Christ. Use the eraser tool. No! What's actually going on with the eraser tool? What the fuck is actually going on with the eraser tool here? Alright, I'll send over and continue it.
CashOS, and now you got pretty much anything you want. You can hyper customize the shit out of this before you actually jump in. The barrier of entry to Linux has diminished so rapidly over the last 6 years even, that I feel like for even the most technically illiterate person, switching is not necessarily the hardest thing in the world too. There's distributions like 𝙂𝙤 that I have installed on actual handheld computers. I have a computer downstairs in my basement that I basically use as a jerry-rigged game console that basically runs 𝙂𝙤. As soon as I hit the power button, it just loads into the Steam interface as if it was an actual gaming console. And then I can just use any standard controller to just navigate around it and play all my Steam games and games outside of Steam on an actual console box. And I think that shit is pretty fucking cool. And it's to a point that even people who are like, what if an update breaks my system? You know, compared to like Microsoft, Windows, or hell, even Apple, you know, you can upgrade things like 𝙂𝙤, and you can even roll back because these are actually immutable versions of Linux, meaning that they kind of update as like your phone updates, like it goes from one whole version to the next, and it retains the older version, so if something breaks, you can always just go back super duper easily. And I think it's that barrier of entry slipping and things just getting so easy to troubleshoot that people are actually considering jumping into this stuff, as opposed to, you know, sticking to a dying, bloated piece of shit operating system. You know, companies like Microsoft have made a huge song and dance about, we get it, people don't like our shit, but I don't think they're gonna stop. I think for companies like Microsoft, where, you know, caving into age verification, where I don't even blame them, is sort of a thing they have to do. But a big deal about Microsoft is how much they're pushing things like artificial intelligence. Now, this is going to be kind of a hot take for people, but I think that artificial intelligence is unfortunately a box that you can't exactly close anymore. It's like Pandora's box. It's a new technology. I don't think we're ever going to get rid of things like LLMs. We might find a way to regulate shit down the road, but because of how this technology is basically chased by the biggest countries in the world, it's here to stay basically forever. Now, companies like Microsoft have found a way to implement all of these agentic features and artificial intelligence into their operating system. And we kind of talked about this stuff months ago, where, again, Microsoft was finding ways for you to use your computer, you know, in a more natural way, right? Like kind of in a sci-fi universe.
All right, so pretty much with the art here, I'm pretty happy where I'm at, and I want to pretty much hopefully on the next art stream, it's gonna be like 2 days later. I'm gonna be focusing on the shading part of it. It's probably gonna take like 2 art streams, maybe 2 or 3 art streams, maybe to really get the shading down for it. But yeah, pretty much as of right now, I'm happy where I'm at. And also the poses I'm working on, because I'm pretty much like instead of like you see in the reference sheet here, all the lines stuff that I put here, I'm pretty much freehanding it and going over with the silhouette method. Honestly, I like it. And I'm gonna do something special here. Yep. There we go. Make sure I get everything down. Looks more natural now. But yeah. The shoe design there, I was originally gonna go with laces, because I wear laces, but like I can go with Velcro because it just reminds me of a childhood. Also because of Velcro is base as fuck. Anywho, pretty much that's gonna be about it for today's stream. I am also a commission artist. For granted, since I'm still beginning, since I'm a beginner artist like this, it's relatively I expect pretty much my prices are relatively cheap. If you want references, it's in my Discord. And if you want, chat. I'll also. Why is this? Oh my god. Seriously? Okay, there is something going on with YouTube. I swear to God. There's something going on with YouTube. I just realized, oh, fucking hell. Yeah, I feel like there is something going on with YouTube. And I use stream elements. There's something going on with YouTube. Yeah, I myself use stream elements and I don't know what's going on. Because for the past few streams, stream elements has been bugging out lately. Stream elements recently updated, but like the multi-stream part is a little bit broken. I mean, if anything, it should have been like, say, hey, we need you to sign into YouTube again, blah blah blah. I've been more than happy to do that, but like, seriously, what's going on? Also, for YouTube, okay, our YouTube, okay, so I do have Nightbot for YouTube, but I think Nightbot is... Okay, there we go. There we go. So there's a little bit of a delay for Nightbot. So there is a little bit of a delay for Nightbot, but we do have our two backup ones. And we do have our Discord, which I'm gonna fix up what's going on with Nightbot for YouTube. But for Twitch, for Discord and we do have our two backup servers there. I'm gonna figure out what's going on with YouTube, or pretty much I'm gonna delay the start of the streams from now on. Well, not like delay the start, because you're gonna still see the starting soon scene. Hi Naomi. You just caught me at ending my stream. But yeah, I'm gonna figure out what's going on with the YouTube. Or if any case, probably like while you're still staring at the starting soon screen, I'm gonna be making sure everything is the correct it's the correct title, everything is all good to go, pretty much make sure the bots are working, and pretty much I also I guess take a little bit more time in starting the stream. But yeah, pretty much it's still again shouldn't take less than 10 minutes. Anywho, that being said, I want to say thank you everyone for joining today's stream. My name is Brain Blitz. I'm a variety streamer. I stream lots of video games, chat, suggest me as well as I draw art, and hopefully I'll be doing 3D modeling for you guys for chat here soon. And that being said, I gotta get going now, Blitzies. Bye bye, matinee.